Okay, my friends, welcome to the final set of videos for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I cannot believe this playlist is as long as it is, but here we are, over 175 episodes deep, and we have finally made it to the last thing I am interested in doing for this entire playthrough. Yes, there are things I haven't done still. I think I've done a very big, significant chunk of things. A lot of what I haven't done is basically repetition and just redoing some stuff in hard mode, completing some like side quests to the absolute highest level, mini games to the highest rank, and all that kind of stuff. So in terms of actual, like in my head at least, meaningful content, I think I've done it all. And so the final thing we need to do is to complete the last legendary bout. And so in the previous two videos we did the Cloud and Sephiroth version, and the final one is going to be the Cloud and Zack version. Now, originally I was kind of hyped up about this because obviously from like a Final Fantasy VII story context, any opportunity to fight together with Zack is super cool. Like, you know, the two of them together, it's the kind of thing we just don't really get to experience enough. And even having that portion where they fight together in the story was very, very fun. And I was looking forward to having like another set of fights with those two together. Now the trouble is, it arrives in the form of a legendary challenge. I wish there was like an easier variant. Again, maybe they had one more in like, I don't know, the brutal challenges. It was 5 rounds, it was a little bit easier. You could kind of have fun with it a little bit more. But this one is basically as hard as the Sephiroth one. Maybe a little bit harder depending on your playstyle or your setup and that kind of thing. But with the main issue that Zack, for most of us at least, that are, I would say, just somewhere in the realm of average players, not as good as Sephiroth. I'm sure you will see some videos here and there of some people doing absolutely incredible things with Zack and Cloud, but those guys are not representative of the norm. And so for most of us, we're going to find it much more difficult to have Zack than Sephiroth as our second playable character in these fights. So I was having a look at my materia as always. In general, I think I was fairly happy with what I had. Obviously, once I realized especially that re-raise and magnify didn't work, I got rid of those, and I added in a bit more elemental protection. Now, as you might suspect, a lot of the fights, again, are going to be the same. It's not going to be identical rounds, but a lot of them are going to be the same as the previous one. Now, one of the first things I did, now that I got a little bit more SP for Cloud, was just see if there was anything I could do in terms of his like weapon abilities and his weapon level. So let's take a quick look here. Okay, so he was up to 20 out of 360. He's still stuck on weapon level 8. Obviously, as I say, you can't increase this further unless you do hard mode stuff, which I was refusing to do. So considering the kind of hard-headed stuff that I've been doing for this post-game, where I've refused to do any extra mini-games to try and get like Dark Matters for Genji Gloves, and my party level's 9 instead of 10, my weapon levels are lower because I haven't done any repeat stuff in hard mode. It's made already very difficult battles, say 5% more difficult, 10% more difficult, but that can always make the difference. And so that's why, despite all of this, I'm generally fairly happy. So I would say in terms of Cloud stuff, there isn't really that much more to get. Of course, there's one or two things that I basically kind of miss out on a little bit because I don't have enough SP. But in general, I don't think there was anything kind of super important here that's worth showing at this stage. So I just returned back to Gongaga because I thought this would be a meaningful place to have this final battle. And we get into our first attempt with Zack, and we'll see how that went. So I will ask you guys a very, very difficult question. What do you think the first round is going to be of this 10-round challenge? I'll give you some time because you're going to need it. This is a real like hardcore brain teaser here to try and figure out which enemy we're going to be facing first. Did you guess Titan? I bet a few of you did. Yes, my friends, it's everyone's favorite first round, Titan, and immediately he busts out the Earthen Aegis. I'm pretty sure this is the same difficulty as the one that we faced with Sephiroth. Like, I would assume like same HP, same attack power, all that kind of stuff. And so we have even less ability to kind of just blow through the defenses. Now you can see that Zack does not have re-raise, but he does have some interesting abilities. So he has stuff like Meteor Shot and Chain Slash. Now, we only had one chance to use Zack in his gameplay up until now, And once again, throwing us in a really difficult boss fight here, where if you don't really have much practice and you don't know what you're doing, either you're just going to straight up die to this guy, or you're going to just take a long time to try and win. It would have been nice to have a little bit more chance to practice with Zack, but this is literally the only way to practice with Zack. You have to fight this guy, who's already very difficult to fight at the best of times. So yeah, I will preface this by saying, as usual, I went into my first attempt not having any particular sort of specific plan in mind, not having watched any video guides of builds or how to use these guys, anything like that. I just kind of went in with my usual kind of very average capabilities, as you can see at the moment. I've had a very bad start here. But he has the same kind of dodging style as Cloud, which means that he can't, like, as you saw with Sephiroth, he doesn't really have to work very hard to get many dodges in. But for Zack, he's a bit more likely to get hit, of course, well, far more likely to get hit than Sephiroth was. So the deal with Zack is obviously, if you can learn to use him properly, is to charge up his power while you fight, and then unleash his higher level stuff. But for this, like, in general, this is the kind of like chaotic high level fight where I struggle to try and focus on that stuff. Like I say, if we had some easier stuff, I think I might have been a little bit more able to kind of learn and practice a little bit. But for now, at least, what you're going to notice is that the whole charge thing is not really going up. And if you just stand there and try to charge, it's not particularly effective. But you're seeing me here. But maintaining that charge and unleashing it without taking lots of damage in between is definitely difficult. But there's a level 3. So I mean, you're seeing it was decent, but it wasn't like anything incredible. But if you want to use Zack and Cloud at a high level, it's something that you definitely should be learning how to do better. But Titan just hits like an absolute truck. Everything's like 2k or more, basically, if you're getting hit. I'm trying my best to buy some time to try and revive Cloud here. This was such a bad start. He at least has Raise and a Rise. But the lack of re-raise for later fights against like Odin and stuff, I was definitely a bit worried that we didn't have it. And he's just getting hit too much. So immediately I just gave up. I got already just overpowered by by Titan. So this was a terrible start. But I thought if I'm already like struggling this much against Titan, I'm probably not going to have a good time against the rest of the group. So let's go back to the drawing board a little bit. Basically, I would say there were two main things that ultimately helped me to get the win. The first of those is more of a general thing where basically I started to really focus in on one particular element and really start to go all out on that one. And so basically I geared a lot more of my materia slots to making sure this element was as powerful and as productive as possible. Now that's generally what I've tried to do, but there were different levels of optimization that I traded in for other options up until this point. So an example might be, I was choosing to oftentimes have something like steadfast block, or HP plus 30, or enemy skill materia, or even sometimes magic efficiency materia. And what if you want to really optimize like this specific output of power from one spell, basically that means that you might be giving up the opportunity to use the magic focus materia that's going to make that particular magic literally more powerful. You might be missing out on things like Swiftcast, and of course you'd be missing out on things like HP Absorb. And so ultimately I really started to gear towards dropping some of those pink materials or some of those other materials, going for a build like, for example, wind and lightning materia plus MP absorption, wind materia plus HP absorption, wind materia plus Swiftcast, wind materia plus magic focus. And that's already like 8 slots worth of wind based materia. But once you do that, you can really start to power up that particular materia, and it becomes way more potent obviously than it would before. And so I was doing that, and I was giving up materia like HP plus 30 for example to have enough slots to do that, while remembering to keep some of my usual stuff like lightning plus fire and ice elemental protection for an easier Phoenix fight and a little bit easier Fujata fight. So that was probably the first main adjustment I think that really helped me to power through, and you'll see why that matters in subsequent attempts. But the second one was actually finding a way to get through Titan much more quickly and easily from the start. Because I would say of like the first hour, hour and a half or so, literally the most annoying thing was having to fight Titan. It took me long every time, and I was just very like unsuccessful with fighting him. And even though the subsequent rounds were easier than Titan for me, well, a lot of them were easier than Titan for me, I needed to figure out how to do better with that one. And so I quickly looked that one up, and basically I noticed that someone mentioned if you are quick enough, you can stop Titan immediately and then stop it from using the Earthen Aegis. So that was like the second ingredient. It wasn't necessary to win, but it saved me a lot of time with repeat attempts, and it helped me to cycle through more attempts and just generally get more experience with the run. So those were like the two things that I think is worth mentioning. And from here, let's move on to the first significant attempt I had, where I got all the way to round 7 and then had a bit of an unfortunate thing happen that ended the run. Okay, so here we go. This is the first like seriously good attempt I had. This was maybe after about an hour and a half. And this is the one that drove me crazy. So this was before I had the absolute final setup, but I want to show you guys this. So you have Zack as your leader instead of Cloud. And did you see how quick that was? That's how quickly you need to start. And if you're even like 0.2 seconds slower than that, it's too slow. And Earthen Aegis will get used from the start. So you stop him. Make sure you have a setup that allows you to get 2 ATBs fast, and then you start to spam Eroga. So now you can see I'm going to really start to get that MP back now. With the Aegis gone, you're able to restore your MP much more easily. So now we're going to start to put the pressure on here. Almost a stagger. Just as he was about to use Earthen Aegis again, we managed to get in. So I think that one's a bit of an RNG. I'm not sure exactly when he uses it. He definitely tries to use one once he gets up from the stagger. But other than that, sometimes he doesn't use it for 20 seconds and he randomly uses one. I'm not too sure about the mechanics of that. So now, just as he's about to get up, put him under pressure again. And here, I decide to do this. This one was like something, because I hadn't watched beyond the first stagger for that video, I wasn't sure how they kept him from using Aegis. Sometimes I was trying to use stop as soon as the stagger was over. Sometimes that would work. Sometimes I would just use another Eroga. But whatever the case is, generally you're seeing here that if you're able to stop him from the beginning and block that first Aegis from happening, you can really just motor here and you don't have to deal with it. So it looks very different to my first attempt where I was getting slapped around and I basically died within like 2 minutes. So you're seeing still no Genji Glove, any of that kind of stuff. We're not breaking the damage limit here, although I think it would be helpful. But as you guys know, I don't have the Genji. So there's the Earthen Aegis again. We just got him in time. So post-stagger, just making sure here. And the stop lasts for a long enough time that we can do that. And we can clear him out. So that was generally like the whole stop from the beginning tip. That worked wonders. And it really made the overall repeat attempt thing way less frustrating to be able to do it like that. So this was the first time I implemented that strategy effectively. And so now we have this guy. And this guy was pretty annoying. It took me a few attempts to figure out how to deal with him. I don't have as many like elemental absorptions, like that type of materia as before.
Ready to rock. Hang back.
So back to the usual kind of damage that you're used to seeing. So for this part of the fight, it looks kind of the same as always here. So again, Aero is just a good way to go here. Another quad 9 there, and then it goes into supercharged. So supercharged is where I started to struggle, and previously I was just being a bit too greedy and still trying to damage it while it was supercharged. But now, eventually I start to learn my lesson a little more, and once you do that, it doesn't use the Thunderbolt ability on you, and the Thunderbolt does like huge damage. And so, yeah, watch this, watch Cloud, there you go. So this was before my winning attempt, but I still made pretty good progress with this one, so I'm going to show you guys this one. As I said, this won't be like the super long kind of mini-series of this whole thing. You'll only see each round one time. Some, like maybe the Bahamut round I'll show you a second time. It's a bit of a spoiler alert for what happened in this one. But in general, we're going to try to make sure we keep the momentum. So yeah, as soon as Supercharge comes up, I didn't know if there was a specific way to kind of knock it out of being supercharged quickly. But look at Cloud's MP here. Yeah, so he doesn't have any kind of magic efficiency or anything, but it's still good enough here.
Keep it together.
And so that was key for me. Definitely frees up a lot of options. But for example, what you're not seeing here is Cloud doesn't have HP Absorption yet, so we haven't managed to kind of optimize it to that level. It definitely helps. You're seeing, I mean, he's constantly hanging out in like one-hit KO range. And since most of the attacks you do take from these guys range from like 1,200 to like 4,000 absolute tops, if you're able to get back like 2,000 every time you land something, 2,500, it's going to make a big difference. So we're nearly there. Honestly, this battle didn't end up looking all that different once I actually optimized even more here. So that arrow, for whatever reason, I think didn't work, so I'm going again. Get the big Curaga on. There it is. I think I'd seen, like, if you really set up your materia properly, you can literally, I think, get like 20 to 30,000 out of an Eroga. It's pretty insane. But we're making do with quad 9, which is still more than doable. It's not a giant handicap by any means, but I think it definitely can help. You can break the damage limit. But I think here I'd already started to learn a little bit to just stop attacking it so I don't get the Thunderbolt happening. So you're seeing Cloud deliberately just not attacking now. I'm sure there are ways to attack it without like triggering off the Thunderbolt or something, but I didn't have enough experience with this fight to really figure that out. I was just trying to generally play it safe. Because you saw, there you go. So if you leave it alone, it doesn't do Thunderbolt, it just does low voltage. The only trouble with this one is that it can get spammy sometimes, like literally within 5 or 10 seconds it just does supercharged again. And so you spend a lot of the fight just kind of waiting. So I think if you're trying to do this, I would probably look up like a way to handle it when it's supercharged.
Are you even trying?
I imagine that the strat can't be to just wait for like 30 seconds or whatever. Good players, they never really need to wait. They play the game on their own terms, so... but for me at least, it was like, okay, I figured out that if I leave it alone, at least I can just, you know, I don't run the risk of dying. So we'll just be patient. So there you go, there's the low voltage. Then we go back in once more. So again, what you're seeing is that I'm not really utilizing Zack's like charging abilities. I really should, obviously. That's the kind of thing, again, I'd also recommend like looking up and learning how best to do it in battle. Like I started dabbling a little bit more with the whole quick charge stuff, but I never really, like, I think it pays to watch a nice guide for how to quick charge with Zack and stuff. But this guy's tanky, man. Like, it's been hit with a whole bunch of quad 9 Erogas, but it's still there. So I take a risk here. There you go. So, because that was a killing blow, I'm not sure if you can always just use Eroga while it's supercharged and it'll be fine. The first time when Cloud got hit with Thunderbolt and died, he went more for melee attacks, so maybe Eroga from a distance is still fine. Okay, back to our old friend Phoenix here. Phoenix is always an annoying fight if you don't have lightning elemental absorption. Sorry, fire elemental absorption. Okay, here we go. Honestly, I don't remember what I ended up doing for this boss. Again, it's been a few weeks since I recorded this. So I think, again, I'm just trying to probably utilize Cloud's magic as much as I can. Can use bio on it. And especially with Faith, Cloud doesn't really need to use a lot of magic power to take out these guys, so he can use lower level spells and still take them out. Arrow's also nice because if he uses Rebirth Flame, like some of the enemies it brings back after that, they're weak to that. So you can see Cloud is healing from fire. So we did have enough slots to put the elemental plus fire, probably fire and ice, on there. So I'm going to try to keep Zack alive, obviously, as best I can, but honestly, at this level, anyone who isn't absorbing fire, even Sephiroth, is at risk of dying. So this one I still test out to see what I can do here with my arrow. So here, again, I'm in a little bit of a dilemma about, like, do I use MP or not? And I decided not to for now. Okay, so I had a few seconds of trying to decide what to do with this guy. I decided to, again, try and conserve MP here. Honestly, his Eroga is probably powerful enough that I could have just used an Eroga and still got most of my MP back. But for now, at least. Now things aren't looking so good, but as I say, anyone who doesn't absorb fire, I really struggle to keep them alive against Phoenix. I just haven't practiced enough with trying to actually stop its attacks. I always get by with just brute forcing it and just relying on my lightning, just relying on my elemental. That's annoying. So with these guys, if you don't use the elements that they want, then they still take quite a long time. But I was doing my best to not use up MP still. But wasn't doing too great a job because obviously Zack kept dying. But we were going to get a stagger soon, so I wanted him to be there. And well, I need the synergy ability as well soon. There we go. Almost there. There we go. So go straight for the limit so they have some ATB left over.
You're done. Let's dance, asshole.
And I wanted to try and see if I could get Blizzaga off with Zack before it ends, but the staggers are always so short. Yeah, just about didn't hit, but it was still 8,300 damage, so we'll take it. Now Cloud can hopefully get a quick one in. Yeah. I hate how quickly it goes into Rebirth Flame. It's annoying, but I still think it took some damage. Couldn't quite tell. In any case, Zack's not in a good position here. 6,100 without any kind of mana wall and stuff. At this stage, I think I just refuse to bring him back because he's just going to die too quickly. So we have the Archdragon that I can take out with relatively simple stuff. So there you go. I literally got more MP than I used up, so that was good, even without the efficiency. So that's the level of damage we're able to do now. I think I used 10 MP and I got 13 back, so it's definitely nice. They have D-Shell, which obviously helps. There you go. And so now suddenly Cloud's MP is looking way healthier again, and so that made a big difference.
Time to get serious.
So especially once these minions have been taken out as well, we'll be relatively safe.
So long. That's that.
Okay, so now that things were safer, I did decide to bring back Zack so that in the next round he still had some more HP if he survives.
Keep it together.
But 2,700 really is not a lot. Like, that's going to go very quickly. Look at that, 2,300 from one attack.
You're done.
So I think he's going to pretty much die again here. And I'm just going to... This time I'm going to be like, okay. I'm done with this guy. Alright, let's see. Yep, he fell unconscious again. This track always reminds me a little bit of MGS. And there you go. My entire ascension was wasted. Excellent. Don't you just love it when that happens? With that one, it's like sometimes it basically your character kind of teleports over to the boss and just does it. Sometimes it don't. So yeah, I mistimed it. So one final raise. He's going to get back up to basically full MP anyway. And at least Zack can have some HP for the next round. The Phoenix always a bit of a slog for me. And I'm definitely not utilizing Zack very well. But we're still getting through. And then we have this guy, which I genuinely found quite difficult. I wasn't really used to this level of like power and aggression. Basically, he kind of fights a bit like Bahamut, funnily enough, where he is constantly clawing and swiping, and he does a lot of damage. So you kind of have to be quite careful with this guy.
Hang back.
Really got to rely on your blocks and your parries, I think, or overpower him. But that slaughter move, as long as you're blocking, as you can see, it's not so bad. But if you're not, you're going to put yourself in big trouble. So interrupt him in a bit there, and he does have a lot of HP. So he used a limit break, but he's still got easily about 90% of his HP. So definitely not a pushover, this guy.
Safety first.
Look at how quickly he came over there. Did you see that? That was like a teleport. I learned a little bit from my virtual Sephiroth thing there. Managed to put my finger on R1 and then cancel out to get the block anyway, despite the speed. But in general, it's just... he's a tough guy to deal with. Because then he goes on to the Counter-Strike thing. This is basically the stage where you need ATB, and if you can spam like fire, then he'll stagger pretty quickly. But you need to use up the MP to do it. So you can see that was like half a pressure bar. And he heals from fire, so that's good. Then Thundara, and Zack's almost dead. Thankfully the counter-strike's not too bad. But if you're trying to charge your ATB, obviously by hitting the guy, and he has his barrier up, then that's going to be a problem. Alright, we're going to try and interrupt the Voltaic Storm. Are they going to take the full force, or can they interrupt? Yeah, we interrupted, thankfully. Almost there. There you go. Obviously, once staggered, I'm looking for a Fire Arga or two. Honestly, I still think these guys are powerful enough that Fire is probably better. 8,929. Like, two Firers feel like they do more damage than a Fire Arga sometimes. Yeah, stagger didn't last too long. So in general, not too bad. I mean, if you can follow this pattern, it's fine. But sometimes if you're just missing a lot of blocks and you can't put him under pressure quickly enough, he can do a ton of damage to you. But now I want another ATB so that when he's under pressure, I can unleash another Fire Arga if possible. Okay. Just when you fight very aggressive enemies, it's just hard for me to gain ATB because I feel like I'm always getting hit. And well, I have to keep attacking because I want ATB. So it's always that dilemma. That Counter-Strike hit hard.
It's on you.
Just hard to see, like, you see when he's doing the demonic defense, it's just hard to build any ATB. You feel like you kind of just have to stand there. It's a bit annoying. But still, we're nearly there. So I definitely had one or two encounters with this guy where he was, like, he did a lot of damage to me, but this one was relatively okay. Definitely had worse runs against him. I would say from start to finish, I probably had maybe 10 attempts at this. Something like that. We had at least, I think, 3 or 4 attempts that were about half an hour or more. Maybe 4 or 5 attempts that were that long. So it made the overall runtime just ages. But we're still battling through here. Definitely nowhere near as easy as with Sephiroth, unfortunately. And now we have Kujata. So this will probably be kind of the same as Sephiroth, but just a bit more difficult. Cloud should generally be fairly safe. I mean, even if you can just absorb fire and ice, that tends to already just make your life much easier. But this is one where Zack is a little bit vulnerable. Speaking of vulnerable, it is vulnerable to stop. So that's something you can definitely use to your advantage. Figure might as well get some venom on there. It lasts for quite a long time. It's pretty good. But this time the poison didn't work. Let's see if it works second time. It does. So trying to convert that to venom. Thankfully they're quite generous with the AoE of Thunderous Stomp. It's the kind of move that it could hit, like if they extended the AoE of it like 20% or something, I feel like you get hit by it a lot. So I'm just trying to throw in a few extra moves with Zack now and then. There you go. So fire, that's good for us. Ideally, you want fire and lightning so that it's weak to wind, which unfortunately did not happen this time. Because then if it does, obviously Eroga is going to do a ton of damage and a lot of pressure. Try a Fireball Blade anyway. Again, something a little different here. So I'm kind of using Zack in a little bit more of a supporting capacity here sometimes. Because I don't want to control him for too long. Like generally, like the game is better at controlling him passively than I am actively, as you can see. It's generally better with his blocks and evasions when I'm not controlling. Keep the pressure on. Now I decide to go for it since I have the level 1 limit. And I want to push it closer to a stagger. Decide to play it safe with Zack, who's already down to 2,300. There we go. Almost stagger time. Yeah, the fact that I think Sephiroth also had like a mana wall that everyone could use. So whenever he had an infinite MP, you could just give like 2 re-raises and a mana wall. Like all during that amount of time. It was great. His ATB charges extremely quickly. Like without really needing to know what you're doing. There's ways to make the ATB charge faster, obviously, for people like Zack and Cloud. But if you don't know what those are, like Sephiroth's one is just based on pure speed. You can just spam square and you'll get your ATB much more quickly. What I will say, what I did eventually learn, basically kind of after it was too late, was that Prime mode is very, very good for Cloud to build ATB. So it's the kind of thing I really like in hindsight. I wish I knew and I wish I cashed in. But I didn't research it like the fight heavily enough to kind of see a strategy that involved it. So there wasn't too much I could do. Like I just didn't experiment enough with that. I had a friend or two that said basically they had the same thing. They didn't realize that Prime mode was so powerful. I think one of them had looked it up and saw it in a guide, how useful it was. And the other did a hard mode run of the game afterwards. And then during that hard mode run, then they realized that Prime mode was super good to use. And so I think one of the main reasons it's so good is because it really helps you to build ATB more quickly. And especially in these high-level fights, you're going to find that one of the biggest problems you have is that sometimes you just do not have enough ATB to to do damage in a specific amount of time, or to apply a certain buff, or
You're up.
whatever it might be. So here, I decided to summon Phoenix. I think my logic here was that I thought Zack was going to die from Tri-Disaster. I was a little bit worried. I later realized that you can only summon once for like the entire thing. Yeah, so I basically summoned Phoenix for the re-raise here. That's why I did it. But bear in mind, you can only do this once, so I definitely would not advise doing it against Kujata. You should do it against like Odin or something like that. Or maybe Bahamut. So you can literally get 2 re-raises here. And so that's the role that Phoenix can fulfill for you. That's the main reason that I needed it.
Deal with that.
Okay, keep putting it under pressure now. And Phoenix stays out there for quite some time. It's putting in the work. I am sitting on ATB sometimes. There we go, final spell here. Didn't do a ton of damage. I think Zack's magic is just not that great. He's obviously more geared towards physical combat. So I think if an enemy is weak to the element and they're staggered and stuff, he's going to hit big, but I think his magic is notably worse than Cloud's. So that was one example of Thunderous Stomp, actually. It seemed like his AoE was just big there. Like, Cloud seemed like he was far enough away, but he still took 2,500 damage, so that's a little bit lame. Like, that happens rarely, thankfully, but can happen. So Phoenix at least only does 1,700 damage, but at least it gives you a nice little heal before it goes. But you can see my MP is still good. And Cloud is up to a level 2 here in terms of his limit, which is kind of nice. Through another stop. This time I did try an Infinity's End. See the damage. I didn't even see it really. Just always felt like it just never really did enough. But it turns out Prime Mode is one of the best things to do. So when in doubt, try out Prime Mode, go into it and just start attacking the enemy with it. Right, here comes Tri-Disaster. Let's see if we can survive it. I still don't really understand why they have Protect and Shell in this game. I don't think I've ever seen them preferably be used over anything else. So I wanted to see if I could maybe interrupt here, but the answer is no. Let's keep an eye on Zack's HP here. At this difficulty level, I think anytime you're under 6,000, and especially no Mana Wall, that's what's going to happen. So there's re-raise. And Zack now has a full limit break, so it's quite rare that you see it, but we get to enjoy Zack's limit break here. Gives us a stagger as well. There you go. And a finishing touch from him as well. Let's see, Kujata has about 20% of his HP left here, I would say. Maybe just under. Yeah. Finishing touch ain't even over yet. There you go. So that's some pretty huge damage. The two of them with their limit breaks did about a quarter, at least, of the enemy's entire HP bar. So that's pretty good. Okay, so that is the first half of this one complete.